It's gonna be at least until around Wednesday, maybe Thursday, until we see Asta's new form that he obtains in, near the end of this chapter, this union between him and Libe. And the next chapter itself, like the totality of it, whatever abilities or new skills or anything that Asta unlocks with this, I'm fine with waiting. The one thing that is going to be painful for me to wait for in this, wait for the next chapter, is going to be what the form looks like. Anytime you have something like that where it's either ended on setting up a form or a specific ability or attack or whatever, it always is it's such a easy yet effective cliffhanger that always gets me. It doesn't have to always be, it doesn't have to be some like big massive reveal. It could just be something, I don't want to say simplistic. I mean, I guess in the base idea of like, oh yeah, main character getting something new and shiny. Yeah, I mean, that whole thing is simplistic in the idea of, yeah, it's just, plus something for the main character. But how it's presented and how it's kind of laid out and everything is really cool. But always for me, just wanting to know what it at least either looks like or does is just the biggest question for me. With forms, it's definitely appearance. If it's ended like on a spell or a technique, it's what does it do? I remember that was like, when Alderaan ended a chapter in Fairy Tail saying he's going to use Thicket of Arms. And I was like, I got to wait 2 weeks to figure out what exactly this attack does and why it's so dangerous. And now, cool, early chapters, but it's going to feel slightly longer until we get to, seeing this form. And like I said, the chapter itself, I can wait for. I'm hoping this will be one of those like rare early times when it comes to spoilers that we'll get it like way earlier, like on Tuesday or like early Wednesday. We don't need a whole chapter. I didn't need a summary. I just want to see what it looks like. I'm not expecting it to be full form. It could easily be full form. The questions I have right now, though, in regards to Asta, like in his moveset in general, is whether or not his black form is still going to be relevant when he unlocks this. Like, will this just have a time limit, like kind of like how black form used to be way more limited, and when Asta puts it on, maybe his union, you'll like, oh, you only have 1 minute in this, or kind of like Ichigo, when Ichigo first was able to start putting on his mask, and it was like you only have a couple seconds. I can't remember exactly the time frame. I think it was like 12 seconds or something, but you know what I mean, where it's like he has this and it's really strong, but it's a last resort he has to kind of pull out way later. Again, kind of like how his black form was initially. And again, I think that's really cool. I've always liked that when series end up having like a character, starts out with a attack or a form or something that is difficult for them to use at first, and then through progression of the series, it's like, oh yeah, they eventually are able to do that much easier, maybe even get like a progressed form of it, like Asta's black form, it gets slightly more spread, gets more horns and stuff. That's actually one of the things that makes me wonder, like, if that'll get like more pushed away, which I don't think it will, because we're seeing his black form grow and like it progress in like exactly how much it takes over and exactly what it results in, because it obviously started with 1 horn. Now we're at like 3 horns, I think. No, 2 horns normally, 3 horns like in his berserk. I can't remember exactly, but we're at a point where that question I think is going to come up. It's like, what's going to happen with black form if Asta gets this new one? I feel like something like a time limit on it, and then eventually Asta getting a, eventually when his union becomes way more normal for him to use, his black form is probably going to end up being the one that's maybe not as used then, where it'll be like that is his kind of like sizing up form. Actually, I think that would be really cool. I would like that a lot, actually, thinking about it. It'd be like Asta going against an opponent. He goes black form as just his general, oh yeah, I gotta boost myself up to go against this guy. But still, like, I'm not taking this person as like super serious. I'll compare it to like Natsu has multiple forms that he has now at will. And he's got Lightning Flame Dragon mode, he's got Fire Dragon King mode, he's got Dragon Force. Lightning Flame Dragon mode is clearly not even close to his other two, but it's kind of in that same zone I'm hoping black form becomes, where it's like we don't see it too much, but when we see it, you get the nostalgia vibe, and it's like, oh cool, he's starting to pick up a little bit. He's starting to take this fight a little bit more seriously. He's like maybe figured out something that this form will be better at, kind of, because that's just one of those things. And it's not just you know, it's not just like something like Natsu's Lightning Flame Dragon, which went years without seeing it. Like Naruto's like lower forms you don't see nearly as much. Same thing with like Luffy's gears. I guess Ichigo's a different story, because like Ichigo would start out in base with his Shikai, and then Ichigo would go to Bankai, and then, you know, put mask on. It was like a much more fast progression of steps. Like his were different, I guess, because his forms were more all stacking, and they kind of went almost in a progression line, whereas like the other guys are all kind of, for the most part, separate to a degree. Or where I guess in black form it's more of like an unrefined version, because his black form is more of like it's layered on top of him, rather where Union is like they're merging. But I'm a little bit worried, I think you can tell, about just black form in general, because I don't want it to go away. I don't want it to be forgotten about, and I don't think it will. I'm gonna keep my hopes on, and like I said, it's kind of like his alright, time to stretch a little bit form. But this one, we did get a lot of really neat stuff this chapter, and I know it's already 6 minutes in, and I've mostly just talked about, I guess, content of the chapter, like in a larger scope, but not exactly the specifics of the chapter. Because like we did get Yuno. I really liked Yuno, just having the opening. We haven't seen him in a while. Tabata is still drawing with those dark bags under his eyes, so I'm a little bit concerned in that, because Yuno is, I think everybody can guess, not in the best of places right now. And I've said it before, but I'm very serious every single time I say it. When Asta was like very normal in his interactions with Yuno, not that long ago during the whole meeting of the captains, and Yuno didn't have that kind of, you know, Yuno charm whenever, like when he and Asta come together, and it's like they have that brotherly kind of like bond of both kind of bickering, yet they mess with each other, but at the same time you can tell they both really like and respect each other. Yuno didn't go to that normal kind of setup. He stayed in a very like that dark aura kind of thing. He has like this darker personality, almost not personality, but kind of like this darker tone to his personality right now. It's been going on after obviously Xenon, you know, taking William and killing half of the Golden Knot. It makes sense why he's like that, but I'm worried about him because specifically, like everything else was like, yeah, okay, you know, he's pissed off, he's ready to do whatever he needs to get stronger and work towards defeating Xenon. But specifically, him having that non-interaction with Asta was troubling to me, because that's how you can tell he's actually like really messed up inside. And I don't know, it's just a really, it's a really unnerving kind of thing when you have something like that, when you have this kind of like always dynamic between the two of them. And Asta, who, even though he also went through some pain, like none of the Black Bulls died, but he had his base like wrecked, he had his captain stolen after right when they thought it was going good for him, and he was able still to kind of like, you know, pick himself up, and to a degree, I mean, it's not like Noct had help in it, he had help from knocking it, rather I should say. But he still, at least when he saw Yuno, you could tell he had that kind of good vibe. It's like, okay, this is somebody that just puts him in a good mood. You know, Yuno is pretty much his brother, and he's just happy to see him. It's just like a glimmer of good vibes in this dark zone that he was kind of put in. And you know, I'm very worried about Yuno. Like, I don't know how many times I have to kind of express it, but I think you can tell just by the tone of my voice, and obviously every time I think about it, it's just like, yeah, it's a darker kind of way that I think Tabata is going to be directing his character. And I think that him not cheering up, at least even in the slightest, when he's talking to Asta, was a red flag. A red flag on what exactly he's going to do with Yuno. I don't think he's gonna die or anything, but I guess, yeah, red flag, not death flag. But I think it is a sign of like he's going down a much more, just going to be a much more kind of malefic pathway, because Yuno's shown before that he's fine with killing his opponent, he's fine with being a bit ruthless when it comes to, you know, battle. But like him now, I think, is gonna like start to get down more of that vicious route, kind of like how Xenon like goes for the kill like immediately, like when he seems to be like, anytime Xenon is shown like he's taken hostility and directed it towards somebody. Like William's different, he wanted to take him and stuff, same with Yami, But look at all the other guys, and then look what happened to like the Shining Generals. You know, he probably just bone spiked each of those guys and then took them down. But during this, like, we get back afterwards to Asta, and there was some stuff that was dropped. I've seen a lot of people go over already. Like, you had these cookies and just kind of like baked goods that healed them, and people are talking about like because he mentions that Noct was like, oh yeah, these are from the Spade Kingdom Resistance members, so everyone's relating these to Charmy. Again, it would make sense if so, like if they're somehow related to Charmy just based off this. But I don't know, I'm very curious exactly though what Tabata's plan would be if Charmy's parents, or maybe one of them actually. I think that would make more sense if like one of Charmy's parents is from like the Spade, because whichever one is a dwarf, I want to be from the Diamond. I want the Diamond Kingdom to have something significant, and obviously diamonds, and like we've seen their tunnels from their excavations and stuff. It would make sense if dwarves were from there. Plus, like, Tabata, I'm not gonna lie, like I like Tabata's style. I like Black Clover, obviously, and I like what he's doing right now. But he's just shafted the Diamond Kingdom, like hard. And it's not like the same with the Heart Kingdom, where the Heart Kingdom was kind of like looped in with the Spade Kingdom stuff. The Diamond Kingdom obviously has been here from the start, and he hasn't given them, I think, nearly as much attention as I had hoped. And I think a lot of people really want to see more Spades or some more Diamond Kingdom stuff. And then obviously primarily I think everybody that just heard me say that, it's like, yeah, every single person that heard me say that in this video, that when I said, yeah, we want to see more Diamond Kingdom stuff, anybody that nodded their head in an agreement knows also we want to see Mars. I really want to see Mars again. Mars is definitely up there for characters in Black Clover for me, but we haven't seen him in so long, so it's like we haven't got much like progression of his character. Like I figured now we'd at least have him like shown. I don't know. I've still got my fingers crossed that we'll see them show up for the war against the Spade Kingdom, but expect what is it? Hope for the best, expect the worst kind of thing when it comes to like your wishes and I guess just wish list when it comes to like an arc. There's actually, like, thinking back, the Elf Resurrection arc, I got most of my wish list like done. I think the only thing that I didn't really get was a Zora 1v1 fight. I have to go back and look. Actually, I should do that again for this arc. Maybe I should do that for the Selene arc too. It's a good idea. Oh, I gotta write that down now that I think about it. Anyway, we did get some nice stuff. It looks like we gotta have a scene between Noct and his brother, which I liked. I didn't think that was his brother at the start. Like, I saw the hair and assumed it was like the mushroom guy that we saw in the Mantises, but he straight calls him, I think, his brother at one point. So it's definitely gonna be Noct's sibling. I'm very much wondering what his magic is, because Noct with the dark hair and him having shadow magic, okay, but his brother having like seemingly white hair, or at least a light colored hair, is Tabata gonna give him light magic or some form of holy magic? I guess actually holy magic would make more sense, because it's like you have light and darkness, but like you could have shadow and holy or something. That'd be really neat if he gave him something like holy, and maybe he's just kind of like this anti-devil healer or something. That'd be badass. Actually, I would really like if Tabata did that. You had a holy wizard, and it's like his magic is healing, but against devils it does damage. That would actually be really cool. I actually like that idea a lot, where it would just depend on exactly who you are, kind of thing, of how it does something differently. Or maybe it heals allies but damages enemies or something. That'd be actually be pretty cool too. I do really like the idea of like him being a healer, but like against devils he can do damage. But after that, would that make him? That sounds like it would be that would be arcane though, and that Noct's not arcane. It would be weird if Noct is not arcane, but his brother would be arcane. I don't know. I think just like healing your enemies but damaging or healing your allies but damaging your enemies would fit more towards like that set, where it's not too busted to where it would, because if it could hurt devils, it would definitely be arcane. And then like another arcane character, unless maybe that was like part of the reason like why something happened to him. I don't know. I'm going off on like a weird rabbit hole of something that I thought of like mid-video that has absolutely zero current hints in the series. So I don't want to do too much of that. But I did really like the panel of Asta like having Libe on top of like on his shoulders. And I did notice I didn't notice this until this chapter, when it shows the color page on the front, and it's got Asta and Libe, and you have Lasita behind him, is Asta looks slightly taller, just barely taller than Libe. Libe's hair is taller, but if you kind of like look at like where their noses are, it looks like Asta is just like a centimeter maybe taller than him, just barely. And if so, like I like that dynamic of him kind of being like the one on Asta's shoulders, Asta holding up. Plus, I guess Asta, he probably wouldn't be able to hold up Asta the same way, because Asta's very physically strong, so this is nothing to him. But at the end of it, like when we got the part with Noct, and Noct decided like it's been 2 days, and so this is all or nothing. Like they've been practicing Union for a while, and he just says, all right, this is it. It's either you guys push it here or it's over. And he goes up, uses his uses his mana zone, uses this dark prison hunting ground, which I liked a lot. I liked that he used it in a way that it actually felt kind of like an easy reference, because it's getting way more popular right now. And like Jujutsu Kaisen has like the domain expansions, you just have like a zone that fits your abilities. I just like that idea. I'm hoping that we could get, actually I'm thinking about it. It's like I don't want him just to kind of like a mana zone event. Well, no, because I was gonna say, like, I don't want mana zone to eventually just become domain expansions, essentially, in the idea. But I guess they'd be different, and like one is kind of like it's to a degree. Domain expansions is like a type of spatial ability. You're creating your own zone and locking your opponent in there. But whereas this would be more of just your mana area. You're essentially kind of like taking over like a small zone of mana, and obviously mana zone. But yeah, but I mean, like, to the degree of you're altering it entirely into like your magic, it would make sense though if like the further you go in your mana zone, the further it becomes kind of like a higher level of implementing your specific magic into it. So I guess it would make sense. It's like the same of like you have mana sensing, and eventually that will evolve, and you can get good enough to become like mana zone. So like it would make sense to me, actually, now that I think about it. Or like the combination, or actually like I like the idea of just like it's just a different combination of each of them, kind of like how Yami has Black Moon, whereas like maybe instead of it being kind of like all this, where it's like instead of like a sort of, again, like a domain expansion, it's just how each of these guys are able to utilize a spell, combine it to have kind of like a unique little zone effect. Like maybe could have it to where Wind is always going within his mana zone, so he's always moving, or he's just, it wouldn't just be him, actually, that I think, because it would also be affecting his opponent and his opponent's spells, something like that. But at the end of it, when they're all, Asta and Libe are just getting smacked around by like it's still Libe, because Asta goes into black form. And I want to comment on this because I did really like this. Asta mentioned that any damage that he took while in black form, Libe took as well. I like that a lot. It adds a level of balance also to their ability, because it means anytime he goes into black form, or I would imagine Union as well, that you're damaging both of them. So like if you defeat Asta, the idea is if you defeat Asta in this form, because they're going to be more powerful together, so if they have to fight an opponent either going to black form or in Union, if they have to go into this form and the opponent defeats them, then effectively defeats both of them. Whereas like if you had them separate and they were fighting 2v1, like say Asta didn't use it, like, and the idea of if it didn't affect Libe, imagine Asta uses either black form and Union, Asta's defeated, and it's like Libe then immediately gets up full health and then goes after his opponents. It adds a definite level of balance to their whole abilities as devil possessed people. And well, there's this kind of like a mix between like the devil, what is it, the servant ritual, I can't remember exactly what it's called, the binding ritual, I can't remember exactly what it's called, but you know what I mean, what Noct has with his, and then what Asta sort of has with his, but his obviously is on a different kind of setup between them being on equal ground and kind of like fighting as a duo rather than a dude and his kind of like subjugated devil. But I really liked that they're set up in a way that makes it way more fair, because again, imagine anytime you go in a fight where Asta's losing, you'd have that mindset. It's like, okay, well, Libe afterwards can just come out and save him, and it's like if you have an opponent who puts in everything and barely by the skin of his teeth is able to beat Asta, then it'd be like, well, Libe comes out and just claps him. And then it would also make it more powerful, because it would then be way worse for anybody they fought the stronger that Libe becomes, because Libe is like, it's anti-magic, but he is raw. Like what we saw obviously in the fight, he is way more reliant on the power of anti-magic, and he's not as trained or skilled in like fighting as Asta. Like, but if you did that for him, then it'd be like, well, then Asta goes down, you have a very powerful devil with a super broken ability popping out right in your face. Whereas like if you took down Asta and Libe either in black form or their union, then they're done. And again, I like that a lot. It's a good level of balance because it doesn't make him too broken. And again, it's a very good thing because Asta having anti-magic already is a busted ability in his world. Like, you don't want to give somebody too much unfair power. Like if it was like way later, like end Black Clover, like Asta's are like near the peak and he has this broken extra, you know, Libe jump up, then that'd be one thing. Like by the end of it, Asta could be way more broken than anybody else, and it'd be fine because it's, you know, end of series stuff. But we still have a long way to go, and I don't think it would be very. I think it would hurt tension too if Asta could just, you know, drop with Libe and then have Libe be at full power, like even if Asta loses kind of situation. But with them, again, I did really like what Tabata did with their union, because I imagine with Noct, because there's, you know, Noct and his devils are set up on a status of master and servant kind of thing. I didn't want to say slave because it's not like he's, it sort of is, but it's more in like a servant, because obviously he doesn't just like abuse and hurt them and do like the gap between like, yeah, you kind of are, you kind of are, you know, subjugated under me versus like you're a throwaway kind of like way darker, what you would expect, a way more cruel setup if, you know, if the, you know, in that whole scenario. But with Noct, it'd probably be like, you know, just taking the power from him. And I imagine it's much easier when the devils that you have like under you, like again in servitude, and they have to do whatever it is you say. I feel like it's much easier, whereas like Asta and Libe, like Asta had it set up on them being equals, to where here we had them kind of like thinking about what they wanted, like them both wanting to get stronger and how hard this is right now. And then you saw like both of their goals and moments from them, Asta wanting to save Yami and Libe wanting to save avenge Lucita. And then they're like, they don't want to die, but also they don't want the other to die, which again I liked, because it showed them not only on the same page, but it shows a level of just like synchronization between them. And I think that was really important to kind of to set up for them to have a union, because if they're set up on equal grounds, then how they merge and how they like unlock this ability should be through kind of like, again, synchronizing, getting on the same wavelength on both like emotionally, mentally, and what's driving them. So I like that a lot. I liked it at the end of the chapter. You know, the eye thing is definitely something that I feel like, oh sorry, I had to cough. I feel like the eye thing is definitely something that if you read Hungry Joker, you could have seen coming, because that was one of the things that Tabata did, in that like the further you eventually, when you kind of reach this like evolved state of your power, and that like everybody had like a unique eye kind of like just emblem that they had instead of normal people. So I like that. I think that's gonna be cool to see that also is on top of his form. I've liked the other ones. I like that like each of their tail ends are different, and then like what we've seen with the Dark Triad, they eventually get that kind of like tail emblem on their chest. I'm hoping Asta has that too. Maybe his would be different because the Dark Triads is more akin to like Asta's black form, whereas this is Union where they're merging. And again, it's the difference between an outer shell and complete fusion. And I don't want to, I'll compare it. It's not the same thing, but it's easy to kind of go up because it just happened. The newest Boruto chapter, like if you look back at like original Naruto getting like Kurama's power and it's just the red chakra over his body, and now it's like this new form, it's like they're merging together, and it's a different type because it was explained way differently, but you know, in the idea of combination versus, yeah, I'm putting on, I guess It's like Yu-Gi-Oh! It's like the difference between an equipped card and a fusion monster. Like, you can power up by just getting a better weapon, or, you know, just getting a buff from something, or you can straight merge into something essentially new, combine the powers, and become way more powerful. So, hype for this, obviously. I mean, not only obviously am I a fan of Black Clover, I mean, this is gonna be a really cool reveal. I can't wait to see the design. I know a lot of people are really hoping that it's gonna be like a bit of a nod towards like Guts' Berserk armor, you know, from Berserk, and Tabata has said like he's a big fan of Berserk, and he really wants Black Clover to be kind of like the shonen equivalent to Berserk, and I think he's been doing that. I think his tone for Black Clover is definitely for that, like just like the style that Black Clover has with like the very medieval kind of thing, and the devils, but he hasn't gone too crazy deep with like obviously dragons. Like, he has spirits and stuff. Salamander's like kind of a dragon sort of, but not really. Whereas like obviously the devils are devils, elves, you know, as we have dwarves coming up and stuff. So I like the chapter. Obviously, I really like seeing Yuno at the start. I liked the little nod at what his spell, whatever he's trying to invent, whatever kind of technique he's inventing. If you look at it, there in like the damage is done with like spirals, so he's developing something new. He's not just literally throwing spells at the wall. He's probably trying to develop a new technique, and I think that is going to be really cool. I'm still really hoping that the reveal is going to be his Spirit of Zephyr isn't a sword, it's actually an arrow. I don't know, but my chances on that, there's always the maybe, but obviously nothing is pointing at it now. I think that would be really cool. Would you imagine if it was like it was an arrow, and then it was like this giant, like tipped tornado arrow of spirit wind? I think that'd be really badass. But anyway, other than that though, comment below, thumbs up the video, but friend the like button, subscribe button. This is way longer than I thought it was gonna be. I was planning to do this like 12 minutes, but I kind of rambled on. I do that a lot, obviously, and there was stuff in this chapter I really wanted to talk about. My concerns are there for Yuno, my hype for what's to come, and just how much I liked the way that Tabata set up Asta's Yunya being different than Nox, just from the fundamental difference of Asta wanting him and Libe to be equals instead of, you know, a subjugated devil and, you know, somebody who just tells him what to do kind of thing. That would have been really upsetting if Libe was like that, because like when we saw Libe with when he lost and he had the chains around his neck, or the just like the metal collar, like the shackles and like the chains, and he's like on the ground defeated. It was sad to see him like that, and it was just like, no man, like, come on, you gotta get up. I know he's like sort of a not a villain, but kind of, he was an antagonist at that point. But at the same time, like, we've known him since the start, sort of, and we finally got him. We got his backstory and stuff, and we know why he's like this. And it was like, if he did all that and then became, you know, a servant to Asta, it would have, for one, it wouldn't have made sense for Asta's character to do that. But two, it would have been so depressing for that to be Libe's fate. But anyway, other than that, comment below, thumbs up the video, but from the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. Other than that, I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.